one thinks of a school board, one would imagine that such an organization is staffed with dedicated education professionals, the prime directive being educating children. And then there is the Toronto District School Board. Apparently, this entity is hostile and downright intimidating to any person who offers up an opinion that runs contrary to the woke mob running the TDSB. Indeed, respected education consultant Margaret Wilson reviewed the TDSB way back in 2015, stating that a, quote, culture of fear, end quote, is so endemic to the board that many staff are too afraid to use board email addresses out of concern of being monitored. And folks, that's just for starters. And joining me now is the investigative reporter with True North. That would be Sue-Ann Levy, who just recently published a piece entitled "The TDSB's Culture of Terror Under Colleen Russell Rollins." And joining me now is Sue-Ann Levy herself. Hey, Sue-Ann, thank you for joining me here on the Ezra Levent Show tonight.
Oh, you're very welcome. Always a pleasure.
Likewise, Sue-Ann. So first things first, who is Colleen Russell Rollins and what is she all about?
Well, she's a Black activist. I make no bones about that. I've said that in many stories. She, I guess her claim to fame was that she was the interim director of the Peel District School Board when things allegedly fell apart. I think that was pushed by the parents for Black children in the Peel District. And so she became interim director for a year, appointed by the ministry. And then after that year, she went over to the Toronto District School Board. That was in 2021, just as sort of in the midst of the pandemic. And she's been the education director of the Toronto District School Board since then. So we're going on 2 years now.
And of course, the TDSB was in the news very recently regarding, well, I don't know how to describe it. Is it a tragedy? Is it a crime? Yeah. But we're talking about the principal, Richard, and forgive me if I mispronounced his name, is it Bilkstow? Who was essentially, well, he took his own life, Sue-Ann, but a lot of people allege that this man, who was a good man and a good principal and a good teacher, was essentially bullied to death. What was going on at the TDSB that led to this tragic incident?
He was railroaded. You know, he was a white principal. He actually happened to be gay as well, although that was kept rather quiet. And, you know, he doesn't have to display his personal life like many of the teachers at the Toronto District School Board when they come into the classroom. You know, you have to know everything about what they did the night before. But he was in a casual principal. He had officially retired a couple of years ago and then worked casually and was well recognized. And he signed up for one of those diversity, equity, and inclusiveness sessions, DEI sessions. There were 4 segments of it. And the sessions were led by Kiko Ojo Thompson, who, when you asked me about Colleen Russell Rollins, who was the contractor of choice at the Peel District School Board. So she was brought in to do similar sessions in Peel. And then Colleen Russell Rollins brought her over to the Toronto District School Board to do these equity sessions, which ended up being just, abusive sessions, denouncing white supremacy and white fragility. And, as we found out through Mr. Bilkstow's claim, he made a, claim to the court, and through recordings that have surfaced, she was extremely abusive to him in 2 of these 4 sessions. So it didn't end at that, though, because Richard actually applied to the WSIB for compensation. He went off on leave. And the adjudicator, they rarely rule in favor of people at the board, especially in stress leave. The adjudicator even said that she had engaged, Ms. Thompson, Ojo Thompson, had engaged in egregious bullying and aggressive behavior towards him, and awarded him 6 weeks, or more than 6 weeks, 2 months of compensation, which the Toronto District School Board did not disagree with. Subsequent to when he came back, they basically canceled him from any further contracts. One of the contracts that he had was canceled, and so they continued to operate like he was, persona non grata. And I think it wasn't just the bullying in the session, Dave, but it was what happened subsequent to the session.
And speaking of subsequent to the sessions, Sue-Ann, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the most egregious things I thought is that not a single colleague
Mm-hmm.
came
Mm-hmm.
to the defense of Richard. Is that correct?
Yes, and that kind of speaks to the article I wrote about the culture of terror. They've been all terrorized into silence. My article, I write about how they sit in their offices afraid that they could be next, labeled for some racist miscue, something that maybe they looked at a Black student or a Black parent or a Black teacher, fellow teacher, in the wrong way. It is just incredible how these people feel and what is going on inside the board. And most of the people I spoke to, or because I spoke to a series of people, I met with them, agreed that this had happened or ramped up since Colleen Russell Rollins became education director.
Unbelievable. And also, Sue-Ann, I think in the Department of Chutzpah, that's my favorite Yiddish word, meaning sheer unmitigated gall.
Gall, yes.
Miss Ojo Thompson, one of the head honcho bullies against Richard, she is reimagining herself as a victim. I know there was supposed to be a barbecue in Brampton last week in which she was going to appear, and we were planning to go out and cover that, and it was canceled because of fears of white supremacists descending on this Peel Park. And she is saying all kinds of things in the media, distancing herself from any responsibility of what happened to Richard. What do you make of that, Sue-Ann?
Well, it goes right down the line. And yes, I was going to go to that picnic as well. And I found out it was going to be run by the parents of Black children in Peel. And I called them up and they said that they had gotten death threats from white supremacists, which I promptly asked them, so how did you know they were white supremacists? They could have been Chinese supremacists. They could have been Jewish supremacists. And the gentleman on the other end of the line said, well, they sounded like white supremacists. So, of course, they never provide any proof. But Kiko Ojo Thompson is chairman. This shows you how incestuous these groups are. She's chairman of the parents of Black children in Peel. So, she was not, I'm sure she was behind this picnic that they were, or barbecue that they were planning. But it's they're amazing because they are terrible bullies. She was like, there's no question that she bullied Richard and the other people in the session. But she's not only a bully, but she's a coward. And, now she's playing the victim. Like, you're being racist towards me, and this is just the act of white supremacists. And she's propped up by other activists who, are in the DEI grifting game, making lots of money from it. There's a lot of money attached to these equity sessions, as you well know. So they don't want to be, letting go of their cash cow, so to speak.